What is up, everyone? Welcome to the early wedge. We've got Mike McClure, and it looks like we've got some sunshine with Jason Sobel. Jason, anybody who's dialed in right now, like Anthony Bailey in the chat, wants to know what's going on. Where are you? Are you driving to Augusta right now, Jason?
I am literally driving to Augusta. A little pit stop this afternoon. Me and the boys from Sirius XM PGA Tour Radio will make our annual pilgrimage to Palmetto Golf Club in Aiken, South Carolina, one of my favorite courses in the entire country. So we've got a late tee time there, and then we'll go over to Augusta later tonight and be at the course first thing tomorrow morning. So still making the drive. I'm on the back roads of South Carolina right now. I don't even have a place I can pull over if I wanted to. So you're getting me while I'm driving. Hopefully I don't hit too many potholes. The phone stays where it is. I also, by the way, Sia, I'm going to need a lot of walking me through things. I know we're going to go through like matchups that we like and things like that. At some point, I'm just warning people. I'm probably going to tell you, I love this player while you guys are watching him make a triple bogey. So I apologize. I won't know.
Yeah, Mike, it's a good transition point because this course is playing really, really tough. It seems to be firm and fast. The wind seems to be up. We're seeing bogeys, double bogeys all over the place, which to me, Mike, lends itself to the Valero having some really interesting live betting action when these leaders come out in about 30 to 40 minutes. Your thoughts on what's going to transpire over the next few hours?
Yeah, I think there's going to be some carnage. There's definitely going to be some guys moving backwards. A couple guys still playing extremely well despite the conditions, but it is going to play pretty difficult. If you've watched the show over the last few weeks, I've often been targeting a lot of round score unders. We might be looking round score overs right now the rest of the day. So it's definitely going to be pretty difficult out there today.
Is it still do we need to get on some of those numbers right now? I do want to set up the board in terms of where the leaders are, but the clock is ticking and the conditions are what they are. I don't want to miss a good number. Are there some round scores that you're looking at right now, Mike?
Yeah, I'm just kind of staring at them, honestly, and just seeing the numbers. So when you look at we'll talk about the leaders, I guess, real quick. Brian Harman, we're talking about a par 72 golf course. Brian Harman's over under, the leader of this, is sitting 73.5 right now. Mm-hmm. So we're essentially, market's not even expecting an even par round. We're talking about the expected round here is a +1 score. Same thing for Novak and Tom Hoge. They're all kind of sitting at 73.5 right now. So my recommendation here would be the guy that you don't like out of those three, who I think we all maybe will agree that are the three most likely to win. Mm-hmm. I would bet they're over right now at this point, considering what we've seen on the golf course and the conditions we have.
All right, well, let's talk about where the players are. We got Brian Harman, like you said, he's leading the pack here at 12 under. We got a 3-stroke advantage over Andrew Novak, and then we've got Tom Hoge, who was 4 back, Keith Mitchell 5 back, and then we got a host of 6 unders like Sami Valimaki, Chad Ramey. My long shot, Ryo Hisatsune, is also at 6 under. Now, Jason, you road tripping with Jason Sobel. I love that it says that under your photo there. You've got Tom Hoge in a long shot outright, don't you, Jason?
I do, yeah. I've got some Hoge this week. By the way, I've also, you guys know I like taking some big-time long shots. I've got Hoge, Jon Rahm, and KJ Choi in a parlay, a 3-way outright parlay, also a round robin between the three of those. All three 4 strokes back going into their respective tournaments coming into today. It could be a really big day. I don't assume that that's going to happen, but at least there's an outside chance, which is what I'm looking for when I put in these crazy, ridiculous parlays every single week. All that said, yes, I've got Hoge pre-tournament. I still like him a lot. I didn't already. If I wasn't invested in him, that's probably where I'd be going, looking at the board right now. I like, for 2 reasons, looking a little bit further down. We haven't gotten too far down there yet, but Maverick McNeely, for 2 reasons. First of all, we saw it earlier this year, Genesis Invitational. He wound up coming up just a stroke or 2 shy of Ludwig Oberg that week, but Sunday final round, he showed he's got some offensive firepower. Secondly, the fact that he's played bad, it's sort of the Victor, which is go in reverse for a little while and then figure it out and come jumping back. McNeely shot 80 in the second round at both the API and the Players. Something was obviously wrong with him a few weeks ago. He's figured it out at least enough to the extent that he's on the leaderboard right now. I mean, if you're looking for a guy that's a little bit further back that can shoot a 66, 67 in these conditions and maybe come from behind in a bigger number, that might be my guy.
All right. That's interesting, Mike. Let's talk about the outright board. There's actually some matchups I want to talk to you two about as well. One that I think I'm probably going to take, and I got a little bit of time. So let's start with by the way, I'm 5 for 5 on round matchups. So let's try to make it 6 for 6. My early wedge card in terms of the pre-flop stuff, it's not looking great. I had a couple of plus money nationality props. One still in play, one loss. I have a couple of top 30. Both of those are still in play. So we'll see what happens. And of course, I have Hisatsune at plus 170 to 1 as an outright. Mike, talk to me about this board. We got Brian Harman at minus 165, but Novak at plus 450, Hoagie at plus 900, and then a host of others. We got Josh is putting up the odds here at BetMGM. Any of these screaming value to you? I mean, I do think Tom Hoagie, BetMGM has adjusted their number to plus 800. I think if anybody's going to grab this from Harman, I know Novak's playing well. I do think it might be Tom Hoagie here. What are your thoughts when you look at this board?
Yeah, so the thoughts here are Harman is in a good spot having that big of a lead. I will say at minus 160, minus 165, that's about 62%. I think that's too much. I think it should be about 59 to 60%. So not playing Harman there. Hoagie, I agree with. I think, unfortunately, the market has agreed with too. We've seen a little bit of movement there on that, and that's a decent signal. I think the value is kind of sucked out of it. The only one out of the top 4 here that's showing a little value in terms of my live win percentage versus market is going to be Andrew Novak. When I look at both of this, the setup here, though, the thing about Harman and Novak is if you look at live strokes gained for this week, tee to green, Harman leads the field. He's also gaining 1.5 putting. The only other guy that's really doing that is Novak. He's, top 5 in total and tee to green and doing it on the putting surface. So for me personally, I think it's going to be one of those two between Harman and Novak. If I had to play one at the respective price points that are presented right now, it would be Novak at plus 450.
Okay. I'm looking at some of these matchups, and every site has different matchup offerings, and I will credit DK for having the 3-ball matchups up there. Mike, I want to ask you about Sami Välimäki. I'm not taking him at 40 to 1, but I got to be honest with myself about the Sami Välimäki experience. Like, he's been really good, and particularly like holding up in 4th rounds. I see a 3-ball matchup here on DK. Sami Välimäki. This one goes off at 12:28, so we still have like almost 20 minutes. Minus 130, I realize that's juicy, over Chad Ramey at even money. Okay, so he's even money versus the minus 130. Now, Chad Ramey, listen, if you look at their metrics for this tournament, obviously they're both going to be really good. They're at the top of the leaderboard. I got to give Chad Ramey credit because he doesn't usually do it for 3 rounds. When Ramey's involved, it's usually for like a round or 2, and then he just kind of goes away. Välimäki, on the other hand, has been kind of like, doing it for 4 rounds, at least in recent form. Any thoughts on Välimäki minus 130 over Ramey, with the idea that Ramey's going to finally fade away, and Välimäki has proven himself in 4th rounds, at least over the last few tournaments?
Yeah, I like it. I'm not eager to go pay minus 130 in these conditions, but I do definitely like him over Ramey. I've really been impressed with Välimäki's approach play. It's really been dialed in, and I think that's going to be the difference here. If you look at Ramey, as you mentioned, just someone I'm not expecting to continue to hold it together for 4 rounds. So yeah, if I had to play it would certainly be the Välimäki side.
Jason, I know you're not looking at stuff right now, but go ahead.
I was just going to mention, because you and I talked about this on the Tuesday show, that last week in Houston, I had Minwoo Lee for a 1st-round leader play. He was 1 back after the 1st round, of course, wound up winning the golf tournament. This week, I had 2 plays for you in the 1st-round leader market. One of them was Jordan Spieth, and we joked about the fact that Jordan Spieth could be yet another player to not cash the 1st-round leader ticket and cash the outright tickets. Instead, it might have been my other guy that was going to be a lot closer. Sami Välimäki was my other 1st-round leader play, I believe, at the beginning of the week. Välimäki obviously didn't cash the 1st round, but he may do the same thing that Minwoo wound up doing.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. It's interesting. I thought Sammy Valimaki was going to be like a flash in the pan for a tournament or so, but clearly that's not the case. Interesting to see Tom Hoagie as a first-round leader for me, but I don't have him as an outright. But the good news is, if you watch the early wedge, you might have taken Jason's play. He has him as an outright. So a couple of interesting outrights. Mike, was there anything else on the betting board for guys that haven't teed off yet that you noticed that might have some value?
It's always just looking at the round scores, right? So I found it interesting that Tony Finau is the only one really kind of at even money on a 72.5. Everyone else is 73.5. Mm-hmm. And I found that kind of interesting, just considering where everything is kind of on this leaderboard here. So if you're looking at this right now, like I would probably play an over on Finau at 72.5, considering everyone else is 73.5 and where he's sitting on the leaderboard here. I just far too back to compete, difficult conditions. I would go over 72.5 on Tony Finau.
Okay. Did you happen to look, and I'm looking right now, top 5 including ties, top 10 including ties. I don't dabble too much into that market on a Sunday, but I mean, there are some interesting names. I mean, I don't know. Ryo Hisatsune, for example, is plus 200. I don't know that I expect him to hold up. Valimaki is also plus 200. Guys like Keith Mitchell are minus 115. Any of those names jumping out to you? We got guys like Maverick McNeely that is plus 240 to top 5. And I know Jason mentioned him. Anything interesting there?
Yeah, I was going to mention McNeely, but it was going to be the top 10 market. I really do like him in the top 10 at plus 105. I think that McNeely is one that is poised to at least stay where he is and potentially make that charge. And it looks like it's just it's flashing between 105 and 110 right now. Again, that is a dead heat, not a it's a dead heat. So I like McNeely top 10 here.
Yeah, if you want to do the including ties, it looks like you can get that around minus 120 or minus 125. As I'm watching the coverage live, Gerard, on a par 3, puts it to about 20 feet, which honestly is pretty good considering the conditions out there today. All right, well, we're going to do a couple of things here. We want to take your questions if you have any, and we're going to do a quick Masters preview, and then we're going to jump back into this board. But I do want to take a look at the questions. Joseph Boza says, Vegas is expecting Brian Harman to put it away with a 3-shot lead. Yeah, minus 165. That's where all the books have it, Joseph. And I think he's asking, can somebody post something and steal this from Brian Harman? We did kind of go over this, but if I was going to have somebody, I mean, I don't know if post is the right word. These guys are going to be kind of ending around the same time. But I think Tom Hoagie would be the guy that I would pick. Jason, your long shot pick sounded like it would be Maverick McNeely. Who at shorter odds would you take in terms of maybe somebody to overtake Brian Harman?
Yeah, I'll stick with Hoagie. And like you said, Sia, I'm invested pre-tournament in Hoagie, so I don't think I'd buy in again right now. I think what I have, I'm happy with. And if I was going to hedge that a little bit, I'm probably not hedging with Harman. I'll probably go a little bit deeper down the board. And there aren't a whole lot of names on that list that I trust, so why not play someone with a longer number? I can't even see the screen right now. What are McNeely's outright odds on there?
50 to 1.
Yeah, that's about what I thought that would be. You're taking a chance in this market. I do think some weird stuff could happen, and that would certainly be a number that I would look at deeper in the on the board right now.
Mike, I'll take your answer, but I also want to point out that the first hole is going to prove to be very difficult. I mean, it's difficult every day, but it's going to be very difficult today. Like, we could see a situation where either Novak or Hoagie, for example, pars and Harman has a bogey or a double bogey. I'm not predicting that, but I mean, there's so much. I mean, somebody could birdie the first hole, I suppose, but we could have these odds like not flip, but really reduce themselves in one hole. And I do think that's interesting when you're looking at value in a live outright at a course like this where it can go sideways pretty quick.
Yeah, it definitely can, and I think it probably will for someone here in the top 5. I do, as far as answering your other question, though, I still keep coming back to Novak being, the more live, the best choice for me personally. I like Hoagie. I like what I've seen from Novak. We talk about in round 2, bogey free, difficult to do around here. Then came out, had 5 birdies on the back 9 yesterday, was playing a lot more aggressively. I think he's profiled so similar to Brian Harman so far that I do think it's probably between those two.
Yeah.
And I think Harmon is definitely overvalued on the price you have to pay if you want to back him now.
I will say this, as Mike was talking, you can see me kind of looking down at my phone if you're watching live. I am taking that Valimaki play. It is juicy, minus 130 over Ramey. I just took it. It wasn't a full unit play for me. All the round matchups I gave out this week on the early edge and on Twitter were full unit plays. They almost always are. But this one, because of the price and because of the weather, it was a half unit play. So if you want to ride with me on Sammy Valimaki, minus 130, over Chad Ramey, absolutely feel free. But I did want everybody to know, not a full unit play for me. All right, let's see if there's anything else to cover from a questions department. Let's see. Prasant says, oh, okay. He's just complimenting me. Anthony Bailey says Novak over Harmon. Do we like that, guys? I mean, we have been seeing the praises of Novak, and I'm looking at the matchup. It's minus 120 over Harmon, giving that Harmon might play this maybe a little conservatively because he can. Jason, I'll go to you first. Novak minus 120 over Harmon.
I mean, I think somewhere I'd rather just play him in the outright market there. And, as Mike said, there's some value. Hoagie would be my guy for that top 3, top 4. But look, Novak profiles as a player who wouldn't surprise anyone if he was to get his first PGA Tour win at an event like this. It's an event that has some big names, but it's not significant. This guy is this week, but his trending over the last year sort of reminds me of Aaron Rye a little bit. It's not a great comparison, but when he finally won, he was knocking on the door for a while. Nobody was surprised that he was at the highest level at the end of the year last year. I don't think anyone would be this week or a month from now or 2 months from now if or when Andrew Novak does win an event.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, Andrew Novak was certainly competing earlier in the year as well. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, just looking at the conditions here, if you don't think Brian Harmon is going to win, I would strongly consider playing his round score over 73.5. Just looking, you got the 3-shot lead now. You see how difficult the conditions are. You like Hoagie, that'd be a 4-shot swing there. So just kind of doing the math on what it would take for Hoagie in terms of a round score to go knock out Brian Harmon. If you don't think Harmon gets it done, I think another interesting way is just simply looking at his round score over.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense. These round score overs, I mean, obviously they get adjusted per the win. But Mike, I do want to ask you, is the adjustment usually enough? In other words, when you have tough conditions, obviously the sports books, they see the bets coming in too. Yep. They make an adjustment. Do you find that they either adjust too much or too little, or is it usually just right?
I think they overreact in certain situations. I think that you can definitely, you have to be a little, you have to make aggressive assumptions yourself, right? So if you've seen a little bit of golf and you kind of know, again, you profile some of those players. And the good news is when you're betting round scores in round 4 versus round 1, you have information on how people have played certain holes, on this exact golf course this week in their current form. So I would say that the swings are kind of aggressive. You have to be aggressive with it as well. You have to definitely have the foresight to, once you've seen 15, 20 golfers on the course, that's when you're making moves on some of the leaders that have not teed off yet. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I do think that they do swing a little aggressively, like too aggressive on the side of the sportsbook on Sunday.
Okay. Let's speaking of Sunday, we are a Sunday away from Sunday at the Masters, which is pretty cool. And I think this is probably a good transition point. What we like to do on this show is preview the next week's tournament to some degree, usually a very quick preview. And then we circle back to see what's happening on the course, see if there's any value on really anything on the board, or kind of see where the players are at. As I watch Francesco Molinari on one, who's having a really good tournament, by the way. He was the topic of conversation, I think, in our live chat for some or somewhere. It might have been on Twitter. Very interesting takes on Francesco. He's actually relevant. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, the chat read my mind, and you're going to love hearing this from me, Sia. This is actually 1 week. I never thought I'd be interested in a without Brian Harmon market, but I am. And I do like Hoagie at 360 to 390 in the without Harmon market, where I do strongly think that it's Novak and Hoagie kind of a race there. I really think they can hold off the rest of the field at that point. So I do like Hoagie at 360 or better in that market.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that market as well. At least I like Hoagie in that market. And I think if you were taking a long shot, again, erasing Harmon from the equation, I do think guys like Maverick McNeely that are like back to 5 under, I think those guys are certainly relevant in that market as well at much longer numbers. Lori Switzer says, I'm parlaying Novak and Harman with Ovechkin first and anytime goal to boost. Have 2 long shot tickets on Hoagie thanks to the early wedge and early edge. Absolutely love that. All right, so here's what we're going to do. Jason, we're probably going to drop you for now, and you can probably hear us, because your connection is kind of spotty. Obviously, you're driving to Augusta, some back roads that doesn't cater to a great connection. By the way, Lori, I do love the Ovechkin thing. I'm kind of hoping, as a marginal Capitals fan here in DC, that he doesn't break it today so that he can do it at home, which I believe is on Thursday. Just a thought there, but just electric stuff from the Washington Capitals this year. Not just with Ovechkin. This Capitals team is far better than most people think. So very good stuff, Lori. Thanks for incorporating some other stuff in here. All right, we have dropped Jason. He may or may not come back, but good news. I've got Mike McClure here. We're going to do a quick preview of the Masters, and we're going to circle back to this tournament. And I might consider an additional bet, Mike, in the without market, or maybe in the with market. And I got to say, we're not going to be live during the final group going out, but I really think there's an opportunity there, maybe before that hole even finishes up. Like maybe like you see the tee shot and you jump in on a Novak or a Hoagie, or depending on who's chasing a player like that as well. So we are going to hit the Masters next, right after this message from our partners.
Guys, can you feel it? Legends were born here. History was made here. These are hallowed grounds.
Hallowed grounds? The NCIS squad room?
Well, I wasn't talking about that, but I was talking about Augusta National.
All right. It's finally time for the Masters. I hear it's a tradition unlike any other.
This April, CBS Sports brings you more of the Masters. 14 hours of live coverage from Augusta National on Saturday and Sunday, beginning each day at noon Eastern on Paramount Plus and continuing at 2 on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus. And I can tell you, folks, you're going to see me and Mike not just on the early wedge on our regular shows. We're going to be doing round recaps. We're going to be on CBS Sports Network. I know Joe Musso is involved in some of those shows as well. Like there's going to be and I think Shane Bacon is involved. Like the early wedge is kind of like bringing on some heavy hitters. So make sure 2 things. Make sure you turn your notifications on this SportsLine channel, because you're not going to want to miss a lot of this content, but also just be dialed into CBS Sports Network. Mike, you're going to be on a few of those shows, right?
I will be. Yeah, several. Big week for the golf content, obviously, with the Masters fired up. There's so many shows. We'll be in the Discord server. We'll be all over the place between CBS Sports Network, CBS Sports HQ, SportsLine, everywhere, all Masters.
All right, all Masters. Let's talk about the Masters right now, Mike, because, this is one of those tournaments where it's great to remind everybody like what skill sets, we might be interested in, but like things don't really change. Although a couple of years ago, they did lengthen some holes and things of that nature, but we're looking at a par 72, 7,500 and change yards. The course plays, Mike, a lot longer than the 7,500 yards.
Yep.
And that does lend itself for me to be looking at some of the longer hitters, but I do think, mid to long iron play is super important here. I think that might be one of the more important things. I think around the green play is super important here, especially if the wind is up in any regard whatsoever. Before we get into the golfers that you're actually potentially picking, what type of golfer are you looking for at Augusta?
Good golfers also. It's just, you got to be able to play well in strong fields. So just looking at, guys that have typically performed well in elite fields. I do look at course history a lot. As you mentioned, not a lot changes. It's just one of those events where I think you have to really consider it. And then, as you mentioned, the long iron play, like you got to have distance off the tee as well. It never is going to hurt the around the green play, but it's kind of interesting because it's a lot of what we talk about, but for me, it still boils down to you're basically backing the best golfers in the world. So if you want me to give you like actual metrics that I think are going to be important, strokes gained approach. I'm sure you've heard that from us before. Yeah. Course history at Augusta National, driving distance, and around the green. That's, if you want to toss in par 5 scoring, go for it. You definitely have to score on the par 5s, but for me, it's approach. I'm going to favor some of the longer hitters, and you have to have played well at the Masters.
Yeah, and I don't think we're breaking any news here. I mean, we got total driving. is something that I'm looking at. Driving distance, that's fine off the tee. I'm looking at mid to long irons, like you said. I'm looking at around the green play. Experience in recent form. So you mentioned experience. Yep. How much are you stressing recent form? And to the extent that you are, Mike, when recent form means different things to some people. Like to me, it means like really recent form, somewhere between maybe 16 and 24 rounds. But in terms of guys coming in cold, is that a player, if they're a heavy hitter, is that a player you'd consider?
Yeah, I would still consider them. I think guys like, the perfect example, we'll talk about him all week, is Hideki Matsuyama.
Okay,
well, Scheffler too. I'm definitely not worried about Scotty Scheffler. He's still right now the second best player.
I was saying Xander. Oh,
Xander. Yes. Xander can definitely worry about that. I'm speaking really recent, talking about Hideki missing a cut. And then heading off to the Masters, still going to profile extremely well thanks to his around the green play. Like guys like that, not concerned at all.
Fair enough. I do want to note, it looks like we have a 96-person field. It might be 97, I suppose, depending on who wins the Valero Texas Open. Top 50 and ties make the cut. We're not looking at the within 10 strokes situation, so top 50 and ties making the cut. Mike, there are a host of live players in this field. Listen, there's 72 PGA Tour players. There's 12 live players. There's 5 amateurs. There's 6 in that sort of like former senior winners. And then I believe there's an extra guy from the DP World Tour. With that in mind, the 12 live players, some of them probably have, they're not going to be contending here, but there are some big names, obviously, with Brooks Koepka and Bryson DeChambeau and guys like Patrick Reed, who are consistently good at the Masters. Some bigger names like Phil Mickelson is always a Masters big name. Joaquin Niemann, who has had a great live run, particularly this year. Any of these live names popping out to you?
Yeah, I think we have to talk about Bryson first. Just to me, he's polarizing, right? He's just a really interesting golfer, but he's going to profile pretty well around this place. Number one, he's obviously always been good tee to green. He's got the driving distance to go basically change the layout of the course relative to the average golfer. So I think that Bryson obviously still cares about these big moments. So he's first on the list. Patrick Reed, I like him. I think he's better suited in a top 20 market than an outright market.
Yeah.
I think he's really good on the top 20 market. That seems to be all the guy does at events like this. So I think he's going to be relevant. Other guys, Brooks Koepka, this is more of a DFS angle, but I think that he tends to get over-owned because he also is a big game hunter like Bryson, just kind of has the unique ability to show up and still be one of the 10 best golfers in the world at any given moment. But guys I'm actually looking to attack in a betting market would be Bryson and Patrick Reed.
Yeah, Patrick Reed is such an interesting case study because I think when people who haven't been looking and they're like, oh yeah, Patrick Reed good at the Masters, that must have been a long time ago. And it's like, no, he's still good at the Masters. His last 2 I'm looking at now, last 2 at the Masters, T12 and T4. The guy just figures it out. And it does, Mike, that does tell you that knowing the course and being really good around the green and with scrambling is such a huge asset here. Like a lot of times I'm going to kind of discount around the green because I think there's some luck involved with your lie and just, hey, maybe you got a good couple chips and you're sort of in a groove. But at the Masters, just knowing the undulations of the greens and things of that nature, just being able to chip it to 2, 3, 4 feet, like that's Patrick Reed's wheelhouse.
It is absolutely his wheelhouse. And it really is why he does, project well for me. It's the around the green play and the course history, which again are correlated, but I think that he's there. So when I'm talking about, I guess I forgot one other guy because I just sorted everything by around the green play and it popped again. Tyrrell Hatton. I do like Tyrrell Hatton still. Again, probably more of a DFS sneaky play, not sneaky, but DFS play than someone I'm really thinking has true win equity. But it's Patrick Reed, Tyrrell Hatton, Hideki Matsuyama, Cam Smith. Those guys just crush around the green. All of them, if they were to be competitive at this event, it really wouldn't shock anyone because of how good they are around the green.
Racing 411 has a question. And by the way, the early wedge, that part of this whole brand is taking your questions and answering them in the best way we can. So whether it's this show or the live chat on Wednesday or really any of the DFS shows or betting shows, we're always going to take your questions. Racing 411 says, Corey Connors, a sneaky play next week, plays decent at Augusta, which is very true, better than decent, and he's paired with his good current form. I think I like it. I mean, Connors 3 top 10s at the Masters. I mean, this guy feels automatic-ish, but at the same time, Mike, it's Corey Connors, and that's not a name that really resonates when we're talking about a huge big boy event. I don't know if you think it should or not.
I think that he definitely fits pretty well here. I think that this field is just so loaded that I don't think that I can get there. It really is going to depend on price point again, and I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but I think he's going to be on the outside looking in. Where I would recommend Connors, again, I know not everybody plays the same way. I think he's probably better suited in DFS.
Yeah, that's interesting. We're going to have our DFS show tomorrow at 7:00. And Mike, you and I are going to be a heavy part of that. Let's take a look. Josh, I don't know if we have the odds courtesy of BetMGM to put up. If we don't, I can just say them verbally. But we've got, as you might imagine, Mike, at the Masters, we got Scotty Scheffler at plus 450. We got Rory McIlroy at plus 650. And then there's a drop-off, a predictable drop-off. Plus 1,400 is Colin Morikawa. I like Colin. I think you can get a better number if you wait a little bit or if you shop around. Bryson is plus 1,600. Then we got John Rahm, interestingly enough, tied with Bryson over at BetMGM. I think that's a pretty good number on Rahm if you like him. We got the odds up here. Ludwig is next at plus 1,800. Then Xander at 20-1. Justin Thomas, 22. And then there's another kind of sharp drop-off to Joaquin Niemann at 28. And then Cantlay, Brooks, Jordan Spieth, Decky at 33, guys like Tommy Fleetwood and Victor Hovland in that territory as well. Any of these numbers jumping out to you, Mike?
I for me, like Bryson, again, plus 1,800, you can find as high as plus 2,000 in the market, I think is a pretty fair number. Morikawa is interesting. Like, I like Colin Morikawa. I am not anxious to have Colin Morikawa be the third best odds in this field right now.
Yeah,
I don't trust him closing out on Sunday at all. Frankly, I don't. So I would be far more interested if you were seeing Morikawa at 20-1, kind of where Rahm, Bryson, Xander were. I think that's more appropriate. Now, can he go win? Of course he can. He's fantastic. He's a great golfer. I can't quite get to the price point on Morikawa there. Other guys that I like Bryson the most at this price point.
So I'll tell you, when I wrote a short article for CBS Sports about a week and a half ago. You can find it quite easily over at CBS or SportsLine. I put out Xander and Colin, and at the time they were both in that 18 to 20-1 range. Now, This is not the best number on Colin, and BetMGM has good numbers on a lot of these other guys, but this isn't the best number on Colin specifically. You can still find 16s, probably some 18s as well, and it wouldn't shock me. Normally numbers get shorter, but it wouldn't shock me if Colin dropped just a little bit. Just speculating there, really. Xander at 20-1, though, Mike. He's been injured. He came back. He wasn't really good. And then all of a sudden the approach play was great and nothing else was like necessarily great. But we know he's a killer off the tee. And if his approach is dialed in, he does know this course. He's got, decent finishes at this course. 8th, T10, miscut T3 over his last 4 years. It's not that I'm saying Xander is definitely going to win the tournament. What I'm saying is 20-1 on Xander when we're not exactly sure where he's at in his quote recovery in terms of where the game is at. I think you could make the argument that Xander should be 14-1, and this might fall to 22-1 for all I know. Your thoughts on Xander?
Yeah, so I think that it probably is going to stay there and could potentially fall. So I may wait a couple days on it, but I don't think you're in danger of Xander going to say 14-1. And I think that if Xander were healthy, he'd be 10-1 right now, basically. So yeah, I think that if you're willing to bet on Xander just knowing his way around the place and a little bit, longer time to recover and get back into the swing of things, I think that there's no problem at all speculating on Xander, jumping back up and being the third or fourth best player.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's had 2 to 3 weeks now since his last tournament to maybe just kind of sharpen his game. And when it comes to superstars, I think they sharpen their irons, so to speak, a lot quicker than some of the other guys. Let's talk about a couple of long shots before we move on, because obviously in the long shot department, we don't want to live there, Mike, when we're talking about the Masters, but there are some heavy hitters here. And I'm not going to go super long shot, but let me just mention a few. Shane Lowry's 40-1. A lot of people like him. Will Zalatoris, gosh, I don't know that he can do it, but he's got a great Masters track record. 40-1. Cameron Smith, I'm not touching that at 45-1. Your boy Terrell Hatton, 45-1. Robert McIntyre, 45-1. Corey Connors, 66-1. Of course, we just had a question from Racing 411 from him. Patrick Reed, also 66-1. Sepp Straka, 66-1. Tony Finau, Wyndham Clark, also that same number. I'm not going to bother with Sung Jae. I'll just be honest there, but he's 80-1. I think, I don't know that you'd go down any further than that, but there were a bunch of guys at the 40 and 60 range, Mike, that I thought were at least interesting. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say that's the range where you should be looking right now, and you should be shopping on price, because I can find 80-1s on Patrick Reed versus 65s in other places. So definitely shop those, and I think it is totally valid to go do that at this point. Guys that I would back that you mentioned, I actually do kind of like Corey Connors at that number. It's probably not going to come in, probably not going to happen, but showing some value on Connors, a little bit of value on Tyrrell Hatton. Lowry, I think, again, DFS play for me more so than outright play. Out of all the guys you mentioned there, I think it's Connors and Hatton that really stand out the most for me from a price point standpoint.
Connors is plus 400, including ties, and that's a good thing. The including ties is a good thing for a top 10. So I would imagine, Mike, a top 20 would be in that plus 200 range for Corey Connors when those come out.
Yeah, I think that, like I said, top 20 and DFS, those are the markets that I'm really going to be interested in guys like Corey Connors in.
And I do have to ask you this, because our producer Josh pointed this out. Now, there's probably going to be without Scotty markets, and I'm guessing that there's going to be, actually, I'm looking at it right now. I'm guessing there's also going to be without Scotty and Rory markets, and I'm looking at that right now. Both markets are out. Now, you just said, okay, two things I know to be true. One is you don't like these markets because the math isn't right, and I totally get that. But in a tournament like this, where so much, in my opinion, win equity is with those guys at the top, hypothetically, if you were to consider this market, would it be the without Scotty market, or would it be the without Scotty and Rory market?
It would be without
one.
Yeah, it would be without both of them.
Okay.
Now, I'm shopping around on this too. There's also a without Scotty, Rory, Colin, Rahm, or Ludwig market, and Bryson is still 12-1 in that market.
Wow.
So that is interesting to me on that number. I think Rory is in great form. And the Rory, so here's where I'm at. I like Bryson, obviously. You can find 20-1 pre-tournament. The number for Bryson without Rory and Scotty is 14-1. But if you add in Colin Morikawa, Jon Rahm, and Ludwig in there, the number drops to just 12-1 on Bryson. And I do kind of agree that Rory, Scotty, Colin are the clear top three. Jon Rahm there. I don't think Ludwig is top five, but I do love the fit for him. So just removing all five of those guys that are certainly top 10, and Bryson's number is still 12-1. I could see Bryson's actual number being 14-1 or lower, by the time this tournament tees off. So I do like Bryson right now, 12-1 in the without Rory, Scotty, Colin, Rahm, and Ludwig market.
I'll say this too, because I'm looking at that market too. I keep scrolling down and I see new markets, and I'm not saying you should live here. And I know Mike's not saying that either. Just in general, we don't want to live here, but our boy, Patrick Reed, I say our boy, I just adopted him like 5 minutes ago, is 45-1 in that market, in that market that was without those five guys. I mean, guys like Brooks Koepka, Shane Lowry's 22-1. I mean, I think, but what you said about Bryson, you're adding three more guys and you're just dropping 2 points. That does make sense for a guy like Bryson DeChambeau. I mean, these are things we're going to talk about a lot, maybe a little bit on the DFS show tomorrow, a lot on the betting show. We just got a lot of content coming. Let me punctuate our Masters talk with this, because I think I like Colin Morikawa better than most people, and the reason is twofold. One is the ball striking and the metrics look so good. And what I like about that is you're just constantly putting yourself in position to be there on Sunday. Now, of course, the follow-up question to that is, okay, that's great, but can you close on Sunday? Now, here's the thing about that. I think his game is so consistent that I think the answer is yes, but I also think he's been close enough where he can learn from his mistakes. Do you ever factor that in? Like, is it necessarily a bad thing that Colin Morikawa has put himself in that position and lost? I mean, I think there's a point where that is a bad thing, where you see it too much with Tommy Fleetwood, for example, even though he probably should have beat Nick Taylor in that what was it, the RBC Canadian last year. But the point is I feel like Colin is still in the infancy phase of closing. That's just my opinion. I think he could have learned from a few weeks ago and maybe closed this time.
Yes. Yeah. So, I love my cross sport references. This is identical to the wide receiver that has a few frustrating wide open drops. You know what you have to do in the NFL to get wide open drops? Be really good at getting wide open. You know what you have to do to suck at closing? Be really good at being at the top of the leaderboard in talented fields. And that's what Colin Morikawa is. And that's what he does. So for me, no, it is a concern that's in the back of your mind and maybe a reason to not want to back him. But if you have value on the number and you like him, you got to go play him. Because look, in order to choke away, you've got to be so good that you're just consistently up there, right? Otherwise we wouldn't be talking about it.
100% true. Yeah. I mean, that's that. I don't want to take, Mike, I don't want to take the short numbers on Rory and Scotty. I wouldn't criticize anybody who does, but I think I'm just going to stick with my write-up from a couple of weeks ago. I think I'm going to stick with Xander. I think I'm going to stick with Colin, because I think the numbers, especially if you can get them between like 16 and 20, 22 to 1, I think I like those numbers, but I will probably flirt with that without market that we talked about as well. That's going to do it for the Masters talk for now. Again, we've got so many shows. We've got round recaps after each round of the Masters, which we don't normally do here on the Early Wedge. We've got our DFS show tomorrow at 7. We've got our betting show tomorrow at 7. We've got, I believe, our live chat, Mike. That might be you and me on Wednesday morning this time around. We've got, Josh is confirming, I think we've got about 10 shows combined on this channel right here or your podcast feed, but also on CBS Sports Network. So make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Make sure you're subscribed to the SportsLine YouTube channel, and make sure you check us out on CBS Sports Network, because we're all going to be everywhere this week. All right, that'll do it for our Masters coverage for now. But we got to circle back. Mike McClure, we got to circle back to what's going on here at the Valero Texas Open. The leaders have not teed off yet. They tee off in actually right about now, I think. In the next few minutes, they're teeing off. Ryan Gerard, 2 under through 4. He's up to 5 under. Corey Connors, 1 under through 2. Zach Johnson's 1 under. My wing and a prayer on Hisatsune looks like that's going down in flames. He bogeyed the first hole and now is probably too far back to cash that 170 to 1 ticket. Cam Young is 2 under. Okay. He's pretty good at the Masters. I'm just throwing that out there. Not that I'm going to invest any money in him, but we've got a couple of guys that are doing okay on this course. What does that tell you? I mean, obviously a lot more guys are doing poorly, Mike.
Yeah, a lot more guys doing poorly. And it starting out, I think that 2 under through 2 is good. You got to continue to string it together. I will say, I wish I had gotten more down on Tony Finau. Like I said, when we talked about what stood out when we looked at the round scores, he was the only one at 72.5. Everybody else was 73.
Yeah.
Didn't like him because he was far too far back to contend. Double bogey on his first hole. And the weekend is over now, sitting at T59. So he could still battle back and not cash that ticket, but certainly a good start to that. And again, we talk about the round scores. I talk about them a lot. A lot of the weeks I've been on the unders. I'm on the overs here the rest of this tournament.
So I won't say this about me, although I'm pretty good. Like, my specialty is round matchups, and I don't know that I have a quote specialty anywhere else. Although sometimes I'll pick off an outright in a first round leader here and there. But when Mike talks about, especially a market that he likes, that he studies a lot, he might not scream at the screen, this is an official play. But if Mike says, hey, this is something I'm looking at, this is something I'm like, this is something where the market doesn't seem exactly right, which he pretty much said about 25 minutes ago before our Masters preview. I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't take it. I was doing the show. And so, it is what it is for me. But I just want everybody to know that is a market that Mike likes to specialize in. He brings those picks to the Early Edge a lot, but also to this show. All right, so we've got one group left to tee off. It's obviously Novak, Hoagie, and Brian Harman. Talk to me, Mike, before we close the show about, is there anything to look for from a live betting standpoint, and where are the phases? And I know this changes tournament to tournament, but where would you be trying to hone in on a live bet? Would it be like right off the bat? Would it be in the middle of the round? I mean, this this course might be all over the place.
Yeah, so it looks like, let's see, assuming this live data is accurate, Harman and Hoagie both in the native area, Novak in the fairway on round one, or on hole one. So I still liked Novak and was the only one I showed any value on. But I would guess that Brian Harman number, if there is even a one-shot movement here, I would guess that Brian Harman number goes down to even money or plus 110 real quickly if he doesn't at least par this opening hole.
Yeah. So what's interesting is, and it's not a big move. Oh, actually, it moved back up. So it was minus 165 for him to win when we started the show. It just rocked down to minus 150, but back up to minus 165. So apparently he's not in a tremendous amount of trouble.
Right.
Tom Hoagie is at plus 900. So that's the same number. So we'll have to see where this goes. Connors is at 5 under. He was one of my outrights. I don't think he's going to catch Harman, but we're all looking for Harman to just kind of choke here to make things interesting, right, Mike?
Yeah, I think that's the more likely scenario. And I think that, for a guy like Harman, the first 3 holes are super critical, right? So I think that anytime you have that 3-shot lead, mentally it's challenging. If you know in your head that you've given even one back in those first 3 holes, it really starts to make a golfer think in that moment. So I really am focused on those first 3 holes and just watching how those play out, because I think that really matters a lot here.
All right. I think that'll do it again. Next time we do this, if you all have some questions, some matchups that you like, or some finishing positions or live outrights, let us know. We did answer, I think, all the ones that were in the chat, and we're happy to do that week to week. I do think we have a live chat. We have about 10 shows next week for the Masters, starting really kind of now, but tomorrow. But I do think we have a live chat. I can't really remember. The schedule's kind of changed around, but typically we're going to have the live chat on Sunday, the live chat on Wednesday, where we answer a ton of your questions as well. That's going to be me and Mike doing the live chat, because Rick is going to be on premises, right, at Augusta. And he's not going to be able to fit that 10:30 window. So very much looking forward to your questions, and very much looking forward to your comments and your participation. Thanks for being in here today. Enjoy the Valero Texas Open. If you have any questions, if we left anything out, go ahead and tweet at us or tweet at me, or whatever the case may be. Always happy to answer questions, but most importantly, make sure you're subscribed to this SportsLine YouTube channel and to our podcast, the Early Edge, Early Wedge, on the same podcast feed over at Apple and Spotify. All right. On behalf of Jason Sobel, who was with us at the beginning, he's about probably 45 minutes away from Augusta as we speak. And then we've got Mike McClure, of course. We've got myself, the Counselor of Cash, and we've got Josh on the 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s. Thanks for watching. Let's cash some bets, and we'll see you tomorrow on the Early Edge and the Early Wedge.